the guys on the team, they need opportunities to fail so they can learn from them. And they're not going to learn until they fail, and you have to give them those opportunities.
This is a new series. Most people can't handle the truth, okay? This is a very intense situation, and I'm going to give you guys a live metaphor. No one second guesses the surgeon when he does his surgery, because that's the standard of expertise that you have. But not everybody's willing to do that. So we have our high standards, and we have a control freak. Chris?
Yeah.
What's the difference?
I mean, there's a fine line. That's the hard part, right? High standards, we like to have high standards for the people in our life, between relationships, between our team, our clients, and connections. But there's a fine line there where it becomes high standards to control freak, right? And what are the differences between the two? It's different from situation to situation. And it just depends on your approach, I think. We always talk about coach the approach. And I think that has to do with where the conversation will be taken, depending on what situation you're talking about. But what do you think? What does that mean to you?
I mean, I think of you, right? Like high standards or control freak. I think discipline is a word that you can kind of involve inside of that statement, right? Is like, I'm going to be super good at this. I'm going to be disciplined, right? And then you have the control freak of somebody that just wants to use that tripod over there and wants to have it move over 3 inches when it doesn't actually matter.
Yeah, I mean, we do that at times.
Well, no, I'm just saying like, but it matters.
It does
That's
matter.
the difference. It's like if I move that tripod or you move that tripod 3 inches, there's a specific reason behind it, right?
Yeah.
It's not just a, oh my gosh, control freak to me is like this towel's folded on wrong, like OCD type aesthetic. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think of it like, okay, you ask somebody to do something for you, and then you go hover over them and watch them. And as soon as they do something that you wouldn't want done that way, you're like, no, it doesn't need to be done like that. Right? Because no one wants to feel that hovering feeling where you just have someone on your back the whole time. People want freedom. Everybody wants freedom.
Can you give me an example, Chris? Like if someone's watching this, for example, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, man, I have this feeling where I'm kind of confused with control freak, or high standards, right? Can you give me an example or a time period when you're like, dude, I don't like this?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm pretty easy. It's pretty easy for me to tell people where I'm at. And so if I feel like I'm being hovered, I will just tell them straight up. And then they'll walk away because they're uncomfortable in that situation. I'm not. I'm cool with that. But from a hovering standpoint, like if you're at your job, a lot of people can resonate with this. And you have a boss that's just like constantly on your back. Like you're doing things, you're making improvements, you're solving problems. But they come in, they stir it up, and they're like, hey, this is not the right answer. This is not the way to do it. And it needs to be done this way. And although it's the same solution, they put their hands on it because they have the big pride, right? They have the God complex and they want to put their input on everything just because they have a big ego. And I think that's where a lot of it comes from, is that like people get a lot of affirmation, a lot of confidence in knowing that they put their hand on something, even if they didn't. Like we see it on the client side of things. We spend hours and days filming and editing this massive badass project. We get it done. We're like, this is perfect. We send it to them and they're like, we need to change the song. And like, oh, here we go. As soon as we hear that, it's red flags everywhere. Like, look, you guys trusted us in the beginning, coming to hire us. So why are we going back and forth on this when we are the experts? We're not trying to tell you how to do your job, right? So you came to us, you trusted us, you hired us. Let us give the input that you hired us to do, right? That's when we kind of feel hovered, and that's when we're like, okay, all the creativity goes away. You put us in a box, and it's not going to be the product that you were promised because you're not giving us the freedom to do so.
Great example. I mean, absolutely great example. Now think of it in two spaces, right? Some people almost need that over the shoulder hover. To some brain types or personality traits almost need that side of things, right? And then there's there's a me that likes to innovate, right? Like I look back at my dad and I'm like, my dad was a control freak, right? In a way.
That's a perfect example, yeah.
And it was like, man, if I could just think of another way around to do something, I was always trying to innovate something faster, stronger, that benefited the business, but there's just only one way to do it.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a control freak, right? And so instead of a standard, so like when it comes to the XCLUSIV Life standard, right? What is our standard when it comes to, certain things like that?
Well, our standards, like I said before, it's approach. And then it's like setting the expectation at the beginning versus later on, because that's where a lot of like disagreements come, like emotions rise. Is like, you say we're going to someone on the team, right? Or like, Christian, we need this edit done, right? We don't give him any sort of like guidelines for it. We just say, hey, we need this edit done. Well, he gets the edit done. He spends 20 hours working on it, gives it back to us, and we're like, this is not what we wanted. And he's like, well, what do you mean, bro? You just said you needed it edited. You didn't tell me all these things beforehand. You just told me you needed it edited. And then we're over here getting pissed. He's not doing it right. And this is a fake situation. This isn't real. But that's where a lot of disagreements come up. That's where the emotion rises, is when you don't set the expectation and then you're upset because they didn't meet this expectation that you didn't communicate. That's where like majority of these problems come up. And I just had this conversation with my girlfriend the other day. She was really upset. She invited someone to go somewhere with us and they didn't come. And, I was like, well, did you tell them how much it meant to you to go? No. Well, how can you be so upset at them for this when you didn't communicate that it really meant the world for them to be there for this? Right? Like, they're not going to know that. They can't read your brain. So you're all upset whenever they bail or they don't come. But to you, it's a big situation. To them, they're not even thinking about it because they don't know. And if that person would have known, it's like, hey, it was really important for you to be here today, they would have showed up.
Hopefully, or if not, they've shown you their true colors.
Right. It's a test.
Right. And so, I want to think about this in, we've talked about this in the mental health side of things, but I want to talk about it on like the physical business side of things. We've talked a lot about business, but like on the physical side of things, a control freak, you almost have to, if you really want to dial in your food in a way, like you have to.
It's discipline though,
it's
right?
discipline, but there's like a standard, right? But then like to really dial in your body, like to truly get up on stage or, train for something specific, you have to be a control freak with your food, with your hydration, with your, time. In order to do that, that's not just a standard at that point. It's like you got to be very, very picky because not every standard is going to fit for every single person.
Well, yeah. I mean, your own standards, like no one's going to hover over you except for yourself if you set that standard, right? I heard that.
Jeez,
is your back okay after that crack? I feel like the mic probably picked that up.
Neck, my back.
Jesus, he's getting old, folks.
I am getting old. No, but I love the high standards versus, control freak. I think this is a great topic and kind of actually getting an identity of, which one am I? I think people need to hear that, So
Yeah.
After we go through this episode, Chris, what's one way do you feel like would help people, switch from control freak to a standard?
So if you're talking about interacting with others, which I would assume so, the first step I would do is like figure out your approach, right? How are you approaching the situation? Is it in the beginning where you're setting the expectation, or is it later on when you're frustrated? Either way, you need to coach the approach. You need to work on that. Okay. Yeah. And then number two is like, you have to give people freedom to fail, especially if you're talking about a business and a team. You got to think, when we started out, we weren't making the edits or creating the photos that we did when we first started. How do we do that? We tried, we failed. We tried, we failed. We tried, we failed. We tried something new. Oh my gosh, that works out. A happy accident. This is a cool effect, right?
Happy accident. That's
so the guys on the team, they need opportunities to fail so they can learn from them. And they're not going to learn until they fail. And you have to give them those opportunities. So, we may give someone an edit that maybe we don't think they can actually get to the finished product, but they will learn so many things inside of struggling through that edit that when that project comes next time, they are ready because they've already gone through it. And you got to pay for that, especially from like a business standpoint. Training is something that people completely neglect when they start a business. Is like, you're going to have to pay for people to fail, and you're going to have to waste a lot of money for them to learn those lessons.
Well, and then on the other side of that is just prepare for that moment if you're not getting paid.
Yeah, I mean, that's
a whole other topic, right? It's like,
yeah.
Why are we sitting in these seats? Why am I sitting in this seat? Because I prepared for the product before the product arrived to me.
Yeah.
That same thing for you. It's like,
those are the 18 players, though.
Your marathons. Like, I'm going to run 400 miles before I run 27. It's like you prepared for a day because you put, steps in place, standard in place in order to do that, right?
And that's what I'm saying is like, those are the 18 players. Those are the guys that you will pull up inside of whatever business you have and like see them growing to the potential of replacing you one day. And that's really hard to find because majority of people that you bring on, you will have to baby. You don't necessarily figure that out. We've gotten really good at figuring that out, thankfully over time, but that came with failure.
I think there's a secret to that as well. Is like, you can't fight what you can't see, right? And you can't hear what you don't speak.
Facts.
Now that we've been speaking exactly our standard, exactly what we're looking for, exactly what we want in XCLUSIV Life, it's almost like you can't figure out where the treasure is until you turn the flashlight on. And it's like we've been voicing now what we expect and what our standard is, to where all of a sudden those people that were us are going, I got to get a part of that.
Yeah.
I want to be involved with that. I want to be a gangster. I want to be successful. I want to be fit. I want to look cool with my clothes. And that's the exclusive lifestyle. And that's the standard that we stamp on everything. But in order to do it, we had to showcase it.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's pretty cool. So
you got to live it too. And that's the thing is like what you're putting out online, when you're putting out in front of other people, like, are you that way behind closed doors? We're completely transparent in any door or room that we're in.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty rare there. I don't think a lot of people do that.
And that's why we talk about stuff, because the truth has to reveal itself, right? There's high standards and there's control freaks. Figure out which one you are, and then also let one of them go, right? You need to give something to yourself that you can also receive, and that's grace. So when it comes to control freak, you have to give yourself grace and just create a standard that's actually realistic. So we'll see you on the next episode. Chris, you got anything else to say?
No, I don't have anything to say.
See you on the next one. Go subscribe, join our school community, and we love you.